pleased to announce today that through Canada's new Office of Religious Freedom, we will contribute over $500,000 to promote inter-community dialogue and conflict mediation in Nigeria's Plateau State.
This is the man who just a couple of weeks ago was being accused of not caring about Christians because he dared to say that in Uganda maybe gay people shouldn't be beaten up and arrested. How radical of him. I said to you at the time, he's been a friend of the Christian community. Faith Goldy interviewed him yesterday.
That's true, Michael. And full disclosure here for our viewers at home, I was a part of the initial phases of the Office of Religious Freedom, just so I get that out in the open, before ever working at Sun News, before it actually came into creation. So I had a lot of hope and expectation, anticipation for this office of what it could become and what it really shouldn't become. And for me to actually be there at kind of this announcement was a really awesome and unique experience to hear that the Canadians, kudos to them, would be spending 100 or 1 million, 1.2 million towards different religious causes. Most specifically, this Nigerian cause is very, very, I think, pertinent given today's political climate of jihadists, Islamic terrorists really terrorizing and leading many insurgencies, as we see within Syria and Egypt. And what folks at home, in case you're not really, abreast of African histories, let alone Nigerian history, no problem. Long story short, there is a group there called the Boko Haram. And they are a fundamentalist group. Boko Haram, by the way, essentially means Western education is a sin, okay? These people terrorize the government.
They've got a point, of course.
Well, if you saw Miley Cyrus's show, you might agree with them. However, they terrorize the government there, and the government has essentially given them impunity, and they can do whatever they want, including torching several different churches, killing over 12,000 Christians in just the past year. And I want to say this, because one of my biggest hopes for this Office of Religious Freedom is that we would not attempt to reinvent the wheel, namely become a similar organization to the U.S. counterpart by the same name. All they are is a database. Well, in August of 2013, the U.S. put out a report about the Boko Haram. And what happens? Tail end of August, we actually put our dollars to use to actually see some sort of on-the-ground interaction with civil society, not just, think loftily within an academic institution. So good things coming out of the Office of Religious Freedom as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's not going to change the world, and no one ever claimed that. But when it was initially set up, I remember the accusations from CBC and the Toronto Star and the like. It was too Western religion based. They seem to believe that Christianity is a Western religion. I think you'll find Jerusalem is not in Guelph or Edmonton.
Well said.
But it focused probably, not exclusively, but on Christianity because most of the victims are Christian. There's Hindu nationalists who sometimes behave in a way which is unacceptable, but the overwhelming majority of victims of religious persecution are Christians. The overwhelming majority of those who do the abusing are Muslims. So you have to go where the game is. And good for John Baird. I mean, he's out there. I mean, it's not a lot of money. I wish it was more, but it's a good start.
It's only about $5 million, and perhaps one of my other pet peeves is there doesn't really seem to be a sunset clause to this organization. So if it's not being found to really accomplish anything within 5 to 10 years, say, well, even $5 million of taxpayer dollars is just too much, if it's not actually achieving any sort of end. And actually, on my one-on-one interview with John Baird, Minister Baird, yesterday, I asked him, is there a level of blunt speak necessary? Say, naming actual countries where this is going on and who's really perpetuating this sort of hate, extreme violence. And he said, yeah. And so, yes, you'll get, your communiques that say pluralism and tolerance and so on. However, I just watched, we passed around one video around the office, I know, 3 Alawite truck drivers that were gunned down in Syria by the Sunni majority of the ISIS, terrorist, Al-Qaeda funded group there. Yeah, we blurred out, the folks that were killed there, but there is a level of blunt speak that is necessary, which is religious minorities are persecuted all across the world.
These, by the way, these are followers of a breakaway Islamic sect that President Assad is part of, and they were stopped by Sunni Muslim terrorists, and are you an Alawite? Yes, and they killed them. And these are the people who Britain and France and the US are considering helping by having a bombing campaign in Syria. I'm not saying Assad is a good guy. He's certainly not. But what will replace him would be even worse.
And to his credit, Minister Baird said that is not on our itinerary. That is not on our hope or agenda
that clip.
list.
It's very good.
Yeah, no, fantastic and good for him. And it honestly is one of those days when it makes me really, really proud to be a Canadian. A Christian sort of pride, of course. But we're not so myopic. We are not so concerned with upholding international norms to the point where it blinds us to the obvious that by doing so, you've broken allegedly a Geneva Convention, so we thereby must like default and give money to your opposition. Well, that opposition is eating hearts out of, the administration and also killing religious minorities. And so for that reason, I'm very, very happy that our Office of Religious Freedom is focusing on minorities. And it would be just so lovely, Michael, if Canada could figure out our own business within our own backyard. Of course, it's a foreign policy sort of focus as opposed to see what's going on in Quebec or what's happened in Ontario Catholic schools as of late, to decide whether or not we as Canadians totally, truly, wholeheartedly value a bedrock freedom such as religious freedom.
That is, it's a penetrating point to make, because whilst none of us would claim that we face anything like the persecution that Christians do in the rest of the world, in the developing world, there is an under the surface battle war against religious freedom, mainly Christian freedom. People are too frightened to take on Islam. And ordinary Christian people, powerless people, are suffering. And we will continue to expose that on this network. Always a joy having you in the studio. Thank you, my love.
Thank you, Michael.